Hello, everybody. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Megan. I'm the Mood Read Queen, and we have a special video today that might be the first in a series. I don't know, but I've mentioned her several times on my channel. My good friend and former student teacher, Emily, who was my student teacher from January through May of 2022. Crazy that we're almost to the end of the year, I feel like. But she is now currently teaching abroad in South Korea, and we both love books. There are a lot of books we agree on, and there are a lot of books that we don't agree on. She does a better job of reading different genres than I do. You guys know, I talk about the channel not being like a romance channel, but I do like romantic undertones. Sometimes they're overtones, but she definitely reads other genres more frequently than I do. Excuse me. And she's also the person who turned me on to audiobooks. So I didn't really listen to audiobooks much before I had tried, but she made some good recommendations, and I've been reading audiobooks ever since she suggested that I do. So we decided, just a little background on this video, we decided a couple months ago, before she went to South Korea, that we wanted to do some buddy reads while she was gone and then just chat about them. And we have chatted, we just did our third time, just doing a, hangout virtually, just to catch up on what's going on in South Korea, what's going on in, Springfield, Missouri. And we decided that we wanted to read some of the same books so we could talk about them. And I was like, what if I figure out a way to record our conversations, not do a live show, but if I could find a way to record it, would you be interested? So we actually had a conversation. It wasn't a super planned conversation, so I don't know how interesting it will be to you, but we went ahead and talked about Margaret Rogerson's first book, Enchantment of Ravens, which I don't have here with me, so it's there you go. Enchantment of Ravens. I've talked a lot about Margaret, my girl Margaret, on this channel. I did a reading vlog for Vespertine, which Emily and I read together. We finished it a day apart. So that one we did pretty well on buddy reading that one. This one she finished almost a month ago. So, but we're getting there. So Margaret Rogerson writes YA fantasy, but one interesting thing to note about her is that her first two books were standalone. The third one, Vespertine, is in a series. She doesn't really say how long it's going to be, and there's no really word out about the second book. But anyway, I recommended the very first book I recommended that Emily read when she was in my classroom was Sorcery of Thorns, and she loved it. And then we read Vespertine together. So Margaret's books are amazing. She is such a master of pacing and character development within a fast-paced story. And I had read her first book, Enchantment of Ravens, 3 years ago, and didn't have the best memories of it. But Emily and I were talking about it and decided that we were going to read it and talk about it. So that's what this video is. We're going to be talking about the book. We don't really go through a ton of summary. So before I kind of put that video in, I thought I'd tell you a little bit about Enchantment of Ravens, just to kind of give you a working knowledge. This will be spoilery territory, so just keep that in mind as well. So Enchantment of Ravens is her first book, like I said. The cover is beautiful. It's cover art by, I think her name is Charlie Bowater. Anytime I go pick up a book, it's always a Charlie Bowater design. I just feel one of the things I want to do on the channel is actually read some of the books that the cover was designed by Charlie, and see if they match their expectations. But this book is set in whimsy and then in the Fae land. I can't remember what the land is called. And it's about this girl named Isabel. And Isabel is a portrait artist, and she is 17, I think. And in this world that she lives in, you've got the humans and you've got the fae or the fair folk. And humans, like their magic is they can participate in craft, so making things, like using other things to make things. So even like making food. But her craft is like portraits, like painting, and she's been doing it since she was like 12 years old. And through a series of events, she ends up painting the portrait of Rook, who is the Autumn Prince. And she can't quite crack why the painting isn't working. And finally, she realizes it's because he has, just to back up a little bit, Fae in this universe, in this world that Margaret has built, don't really have anything human about them. It's not one of those like, yeah, they're, beautiful, but they can still experience these emotions and they still have these like human qualities, even though they're sort of unreal, even though they're sort of these untouchable beings almost. That's different in these books. The Fae come across as cold, as not empty, but unable to really access a lot of like the human well of emotions and experience, because they can't participate in making things, and it's a sort of like flashy existence with a like empty interior. And so she realizes what's off about her painting is that she hasn't managed to capture this very inhuman emotion of sorrow in his eyes. And she does that, and then he's gone. And they have a connection that, I'll be honest, is more show or more tell rather than show. Not a whole lot of evidence to back up, what they feel for each other. But anyway, he comes back to her and is like, what did you do to that portrait? We revealed it in front of the entire Autumn court, and now they think like I'm inept, like I can't rule. Sorry, there's something in my eye here. And so he's gonna like by force take her back to like the Fae. I honestly don't remember what it's called. Realms, and to the Autumn court. And she's going to stand trial, or she's going to explain why she did this. Because he thinks that she's sabotaged him. Any show of weakness is seen as an opportunity for someone else to take the throne. And then they end up going on this sort of like weird little adventure. There are a lot of interesting components in it. But ultimately what ends up happening is they end up falling for each other in a way that's, I wouldn't say the most convincing. And they basically have to take on the Alder King, who is a sort of mythical figure who's been ruling over everyone. And the summer has been in Whimsy for as long as anyone can remember, because he's the king, he's the Summer King, and he's also the most powerful Fae. And you'll hear us talk about a lot of stuff in this video. I'm not sure how great it is. I think we talk about some really great stuff. We didn't plan it out beforehand. So, yeah, it's an interesting book, and I hope that you enjoy watching it. And I think we're going to try to do this again with some other books. Maybe, well, I don't want to say which ones yet, but I think we might do it again. So enjoy. Hopefully, like, the quality is good. I did my best to record it, but, it is what it is. So that's it. And I'll pop by and see you after the video is over. Okay, I think it's doing it. So, let's chat.
Okay.
Okay, so first of all, one of the things I want to bring up is on Goodreads, you were like, I want to know what you mean by this comment. Because I remember last time we talked, you were like, I'm pretty sure you don't remember the book like you think you remember it, Megan. And I was like...
because the only thing I remember you saying about it was you were like, she ends the book not immortal. She's just like a normal person.
Yeah.
But you were always like, but there's this well, so in my mind, like, maybe she'll drink from the well and stay immortal forever. But
But
in the book, the well blows up.
the well blows up.
They can't do that.
I know. So, but okay, but tell me, we'll start with the end first. Like, she's still a human at the end, right?
Yeah. And the well blows up.
How?
So they can't not be.
How are they? I don't know how they're supposed to be together. Like, he's a fair folk fae person, like,
Yeah.
and she's a human person. I know when that happened, I was like, I realized that I only remembered the first half of the book, and like the last 5 minutes. Like I remembered, like, because the whole part where they were at, like, the spring court, nothing. Just like, I mean, when we were there, I was like, oh, I know. Like, I remember this. But I didn't remember it clearly when I was telling you about it. So, okay. So as someone who has read her, like, later two books, what were your general thoughts on Enchantment of Ravens?
Nowhere near as good. Much more basic. I mean, like, it was enjoyable, but, like, I don't care that much.
Yeah. Well, okay, so I read part of what you read on Goodreads, and then, like, I know I didn't finish my review on there, but it was like, it felt like it could have been interesting, like, if it was, like, more compelling.
Well, at the beginning, basically the setup is like, I have to take you away so you can go stand trial in the Autumn Court. And then we never actually go to the Autumn Court, so I feel like it feels like you're just wandering around the entire book waiting for this thing to happen that never does, because the different plot kind of happens, but it's like...
So, yeah, because it feels
weird.
Okay, so I was thinking about this, and I think you and I have had conversations about this, where both Sorcery of Thorns and Vespertine...
Yes.
But I think more Vespertine, but still Sorcery of Thorns. Both feel like plot is happening and we're doing, like, character development on the run, you know?
Yeah.
Right? But, like, it was good character development on the run. Whereas this was like, who are these people? Like, I mean, we get to know them a little bit more. I mean, maybe Rook gets I think Rook gets more developed than Isabel does. But, like, I don't really know them very well by the end. And so when he's like, I love you, you're like...
Yeah. Like, I understand how after, like, a few days sitting in silence with this, like, beautiful fairy prince, I understand how someone would be like, I think I'm in love with you.
Right.
But I don't understand how he's in love with her. I mean, I guess it's just kind of the same because of the craft thing.
I think,
they're all special.
Well, I don't like the first, I don't know how many pages it is, but that first little chunk where she's, like, painting him, it feels like it goes on for, like, a month because she's still doing other people and he just keeps coming to visit her. And I was like...
Like a long montage.
Yeah, it's like a long time. And I was like, part of me, I was thinking this would be a book that would have benefited a lot from, like, the dual perspectives, I think. Because what if he...
I agree.
You know, like, what if he was, like, he's going back to the Autumn Court, back and forth, and he's... Because I also want to know, like, he's such a mystery. Like, in there, he seems much more interesting than she does. Like, there was this girl that he loved, but, like, it was unrequited. And then, like, clearly his position of power is like, tenuous. Because that's the way, I guess it is for every prince. Or, like, I guess they're all princes. Because, like, it just takes one painting for them to be like, ooh, you know. And so... Yeah, I was like, I want to know what Rook is up to and the Autumn Court and how he's thinking about seeing her again, but he shouldn't because the last time it just ended horribly. And but he has the Raven pin, you know, because, like, I like
I mean, I was just gonna say I feel like that would solve, like, so many issues.
I think so.
If you could see both perspectives.
Because I almost wonder because the whole rest of the book is, like, supposed to be built on the foundation of, like, what happens between them or doesn't happen between them when she's painting him, but they don't talk very much. And like, and I can see what you said about, like, her falling for him because he's, like, this beautiful, attractive, like, man who's, like, in her parlor, and he, like, you know, makes quips and stuff. But I mean, you don't really see a lot.
He's, like, ancient.
Yeah.
Also, it went into one of my least favorite tropes. It just feels weird when it's, like, 1,000-year-old being. falls for the 17-year-old main character. I'm like, can we not have made her at least like 19?
I know, right?
Like, there's not really a difference, but like, it would make me feel better.
Because she talks about at one point when he's asleep and he seems so young or something, I think. I can't remember when that is, but I think maybe when they're traveling. But yeah, I just felt like, I think there were so many things that disappointed me about it. Let's talk about what disappointed me. Because the perspective thing is like a missed opportunity, I think. And then because I never felt that way with Nathaniel and Sorcery of Thorns.
Oh, for sure.
And I think that's a good comparison because they spend like an equivalent amount of time together, I guess.
Yeah, and Nathaniel has so much more personality.
Yes. And so, like, I guess Rook is like a practice run, but also, like, the concepts are, like, actually interesting. Like, this idea of, like, the fairy people, or, like, I like the idea of calling them fair folk, where, like, you can't make stuff. Like,
make anything.
They're, like, anything.
Deadly allergic to anything.
And so I was like, you can't make anything. You can't even cook the food using a frying pan. So all these things popped up in my head, like, well, how does that work? Like, how do they make stuff? Do they just magic food into existence? Because clearly, like, the food is, like, I mean, and I think that's probably the corruption, you know, that's going through is, like, corrupting the food and stuff, too, which, you know, like, he's trying to protect her from. But I was like, it's such an interesting thing that, like, they're beautiful and timeless, but they don't get to participate in all the things that make life worth living. And so they're almost like, I don't know, they're almost like vampires to me. I don't know.
They're very sad.
Yeah.
You realize.
And I think it's interesting that there's like, she keeps trying to humanize him, but like they're inhuman, like distinctly, like when he doesn't have the glamour, like there are no human attributes about them. And that's an interesting way to approach the whole like fae human thing. And the fact that she's in this town that's basically a tourist town for like these fairies, and I think the setup is like actually legitimately interesting, and that people would get mad that they could see sorrow in his eyes, but they don't even know, they can't put into words like what's wrong with that portrait, but they know it's wrong.
I think also the balance where like the fair folk have magic and then the people have craft. Like I feel like that can make the power imbalance much better if it wasn't for the age thing. Right. Like I think Holly Black does it really well. And like the Quo Prince, where it's like the love interest is this powerful, immortal being, but he's also like 19 years old. And stupid. Right. Like they don't have an age gap, which is part of the power imbalance. Right. So I think I think that could have helped. Yeah. I was thinking like at the beginning, they were like, oh, the Autumn Prince hasn't come to this town in like centuries. And I'm like, okay, maybe the old Autumn Prince was like his dad and this is a new guy, but no, it's the same guy.
Yeah. And I also think, well, I think her character was like overly simplistic. Like, he didn't get as much development either, but at least his background was interesting, or at least they tried to, what little we found out was interesting. But like with Isabel, it's like there's some interesting stuff going on. Her parents were killed by like one of those creepy Thane things, but that was kind of cool. Like the whole like, they get their like they come to life through like fae magic, but like they're a combination of like nature and like old bones and stuff. Like that was creepy. That was some like actually like Vespertine shit right there. Like I was like, ooh, creepy.
And then she has like her sisters.
Yeah, who used to be goats.
I don't really understand. They were like goat children.
Yeah, so like they were enchanted by a fair folk person, and then they're like humans, and I think like that's interesting. Her Emma, her aunt is like a doctor, and so like but you don't really.
She's also like an alcoholic.
Yeah, exactly. And you're like, wait a sec, like. There's some interesting stuff. Like, I wouldn't have minded spending time in, like, the town of, like, Whimsy, too. Because she doesn't go in there. Like, her people come to her. And...
Yeah, because it seems like we walked in the forest for a long time.
We were in the forest for a long freaking time. And but it even wasn't that long. Like, I bet it was, like, a week.
Yeah, it wasn't that long for them, but it felt really long for me.
Right. Yeah. And I think... there's just so many unanswered questions. Like... There's all these like
Yeah.
good base ideas, but like nothing's
Hmm.
done with them. Like,
Yeah,
like
there's like very interesting, like deep, like fairy lore,
yes,
but then the story itself feels very surface
yes.
level.
So like the fairy lore stuff, I wanted to know more about, and I wanted to understand like more about the Alder King thing. Like that's interesting. How did
Yeah.
he rule for centuries, and like when did he come into power? And because like she defeats him like that, like it's like she stabs him through a painting. I was like, okay, I forgot about that part.
Yeah, I was like, okay, they're allergic to the craft.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay. And I also want to know like
I
how did she become a portrait artist? Like what sort of training did she have? Was she just innately good at it? Did her like dad teach
Yeah,
her?
that's a
Like,
good point.
like I think I mean it sounded beautiful. Like I mean it sounds cool. Like actually I kept imagining the paintings looking like the covers of all the books with
Oh
the
yeah.
like Charlie Bowater, right? I just kept thinking of the
Yeah,
paintings looking
like
like
hers.
hers. Yeah. Um
She has such nice book
oh
covers.
my God. I'm gonna do a video
This
about
one
that.
is so pretty.
Yeah, it really that's the thing. It's so pretty. So I'm like I'm glad that she got more books after this one and that this one wasn't the only one. But I don't know how because like
Yeah. I feel like she has like grown so much as a writer.
oh
If
yes.
she wrote the same book like this year, it would be as good as Sorcery of Thorns and
Oh
Vespertine.
yeah. I think she needs to Margaret, go back. Uh
Redo
because just
it.
take the
Second
base of it
edition.
because there's so many good ideas. Like the crafting is
Yeah.
excellent. I also love like the is he evil, is he not evil thing with the is it Gadfly? How'd you say it?
Gadfly.
Yeah, did they say that in
The
the
audiobook said Gadfly.
okay, like that's an interesting character, and
Yeah.
towards the end of the book, you get like Isabel's putting two and two together, and she realizes that he can see the future. So like ever since even before they met, right? Like there was that room she stays in where it has all these
Yeah.
paintings of him over the years, and he was
Uh-huh.
looking for someone who could do what she
Yeah.
did, and like the future queen or whatever. But that is like so glossed over that you're like, that's epic. Like this guy
It
who
is.
we're not quite sure we're not quite sure to what to make of this like fair folk person who like seems
Yeah.
like he's very like into himself and he gets all these portraits done. Like he was just waiting for her for it to be the right
Hmm.
time to basically like save them. Like from
Yeah.
you're like, that's super interesting. But it's like
Yeah.
but there's nothing done with that either. Like when she figures it out, you're like, ooh, that's cool. But why did I spend
Yeah.
so much time in the forest with you guys when we could have been
Yeah.
like doing something else?
Yeah, it's like the plot and the characters are like very meh.
Yeah.
But then the aesthetic vibes of like autumn and the
Yes.
fae, and also just the lore and like background
Yes.
magic-y part. So interesting.
Yes. And I think, yeah. I mean, first of all, because Rook is also like, we have to talk about him because like all I could have imagined were like these like autumn colors and like sort of like his dark
Yeah.
hair that has like a reddish tint to it, but he's not like a
Yeah.
ginger. And like, I was like, I love him.
I pictured him as a ginger, I think.
Yeah, well, you know what? He
Just
can be a
like
ginger if he wants to be. I'm
everyone in this book is like orangey toned.
yes, but it
Wears
was
orange.
so. But you know what though? I don't think I actually knew what she looked like because
Blonde.
the girl, yeah, the girl on the cover is not what I imagine. It's actually I just
Yeah.
realized it's not what I imagine when I think of Isabel, which is weird. Because I mean, I guess she does. Does she say anything about her hair color?
I think she's blonde. Maybe not.
But I mean, but she should be because that's
But
what.
I remember that like the hair in his pin from like his past love was blonde, she said. And I was like, oh, he has a type.
Right. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. But there was like, yeah, it just made me sad because there's like there's some beautiful like writing and some beautiful lines. Like even when he like confesses how he feels, you're like, well, okay, listen, I don't really believe that you actually feel that way, but I like the sentiment. Like it was, you said it beautifully, but I don't know if there's any like
Yeah.
I don't feel the power behind it. Um,
There's some like scary parts. I mean, like when all the food like turns all rotted when
it
she
was
touches it.
nasty,
Yeah.
and she's like it's dripping like out of the back of like the pastry or whatever.
Because like the whole time he's like pulling away the ones that are gross, and then she accidentally touches it, and
you know what? Actually, there were so many scenes that I imagined like in a movie, or like a. Like it's I don't think it's movie worthy, but like that scene, I just imagined them sitting there and him like interfering and like trying to grab the stuff before she gets to it, because he could see.
It was like a straight to streaming movie.
Yeah.
Maybe not a movie theater movie.
No.
But like a Netflix movie.
I could see it. Like, I could see it. Yeah.
They cut out a lot of the walking.
Right. Exactly.
Of, like, the internal dialogue that doesn't matter.
God, yeah. I don't know, like...
And they have to cast 2 actors who have really good chemistry.
Yes, yeah, like these 2 actors...
There's not enough on the page.
Yes. There's not, like... And I like at the beginning, okay, so like after he leaves, and then he comes back and he's like really pissed, and he's like, I'm taking you with me. And she like goes begrudgingly with him. Like that felt out of character for him to like do that. But then again, that was super early on and we didn't know him super well at that point. But then she's like, you know what? Yesterday I was just thinking that I was in love with you, but like now I know I'm totally wrong. And like there was a basis there for like a really fun, like witty repartee relationship thing going on. But it's not there. Like
but I know Margaret can do it.
Yes, obviously.
I read Sorcery of Thorns.
Dude, we need to reread that before the Mysteries of Thorn Manor comes out.
No.
Because I pre-ordered my copy from Barnes & Noble. Like...
I need any information about Vespertine too.
I know.
There's not even like a Goodreads page for it.
I've been thinking about it.
There's a series page, and it only has the first one.
I don't know. Can you imagine? Oh, God.
Like, every time I Google it, it says 2022, and obviously that's wrong.
Yeah.
I'm like, she needs to announce something, at least after, like, Mysteries of Thorn.
Yeah, I think she probably will. But I wonder, like, what's so interesting, and I think we've talked about this a little bit before, but that was before you read Enchantment of Ravens. I think it's, like, fascinating how different each book is.
It is. Because I feel like I kind of expected them to all, like, kind of take place in the same world. But no, the magic systems completely contradict each other.
Right.
Like, these characters could never meet unless they, like, were in different planets.
Right.
Got on a space.
Yeah, exactly.
And they couldn't do that.
No, which would have made Enchantment of Ravens more interesting for sure. But like,
there's they just was like a random alien fly. Yes.
Because like but what's interesting is like the worlds are completely different, but you can see shades. You can see shades of like characters in other characters. Like there are shades of Isabel and Rook in Elizabeth and Nathaniel, you know? Yeah. And like there are shades of like
Elizabeth and Nathaniel are also better in every
way. Oh, in every way. But also like if you think about, I'm like recasting everybody, but like Gadfly, like he's kind of like Silas-y a little bit. Like I just kept thinking of like honestly, it felt like.
And then like
yeah, go ahead.
Artemisia and the Revenant kind of also.
Yes.
Like it's like if it was Sorcery of Thorns without Nathaniel. Like if it was just Elizabeth and Silas.
Right. Yeah. Yes, exactly. But I honestly, I almost. But
also they were both way more traumatized.
Yes. I was almost imagining Nathaniel and Elizabeth and Silas like cosplaying these characters in like a B movie. Like, because honestly, yeah, that's yeah. But yeah, it was just I don't know what to say about the book more because it was just like it was mostly just disappointing because you were reading it thinking like there's got to be more to it than this. Like, and it just kept moving along. And just when you thought, like, we got to a height of tension, like, it wouldn't, I don't know, like, I feel like they didn't earn...
kind of just diffuse.
Yeah. Like, I feel like they didn't earn the moments that they had. And then we destroy the Green Well thing, which...
Yeah.
The logic behind that is good. The whole, like, craft destroys it. And, like, but you have a character, what's her name? It's not Esther. It's like Aster, who like is the
the
girl,
annoying little girl.
No, the one who used to be a human.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, also the annoying girl. I can't remember her name now though.
I don't either.
Whatever.
I read this like 3 books ago.
Yeah, I know. You're like killing it, but yeah, like, so that was an interesting potential character because she used to be human and she doesn't really remember, like, she doesn't remember it until, like, she talks to Isabel and then she gets a portrait painted and then she has this, like, rage at what's happened to her because she drank from the well. And
yeah, she was interesting.
yeah, and that was, like, that could have been interesting, but, I mean, my logical brain is like, Isabel, this is not going to work out. Like, how are you queen of the fair folk if, like, you're a mortal woman?
Yeah.
And all I needed was
a mortal child.
Yeah. And I was just like, how are we going to explain this? Like, because you're queen now, do you get mortal? Like, you're going to die. Like, you're going to die. Like, he can't decide to be human. We haven't established that magic. So, like, and there's no green well. So, like, what?
Yeah. I don't know. I think of, like, The Cruel Prince and, like, the end of that series, and that all gets explained. So
it does.
I'm like, yeah.
Good.
I don't want to spoil that series.
No, it's good. No, one of my kids was talking about it in book club, and I was like, okay, tell us your thoughts, because one girl read it and hated it, and I was like, ooh, yes, please. And then one girl read it and loved it, and I was like, yes, you guys have a conversation, and I'm gonna sit here because I haven't decided if I'm gonna read the rest of the books yet or not. Like, I think I'm going to, but I don't know.
I really enjoy it. For some reason, like, it's everything I enjoy, even though it's a bunch of the stuff I usually wouldn't.
Okay.
Like, honestly, I don't really like fairies.
Yeah, I think...
Or, like, enemies to lovers isn't my favorite trope.
Yeah.
But, I don't know. Something about it gets me. But I can see how it would be polarizing.
Yeah. So we'll see.
'Cause I don't think it's perfect.
No. Well, that was my first experience with Holly Black, too. So now I don't know what to think.
If you want, earlier you were saying you wanted something kind of spooky. Her adult book that came out in May.
Oh, Book of Night?
Yeah, it's very Halloween vibes.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Also, I don't know how to say it without spoiling. I don't know. I feel like her love interest / her boyfriend, like, they have an established relationship in that book. I don't know. I think he's your type.
Oh, well, I'm sure he is. I think you know me well enough at this point. Yeah. I have a type for sure. Yeah. Like, which is most everybody.
As in that book, when I was reading it, I pictured the actor. You haven't seen Shadow and Bone, but the actor who plays Matthias.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Like, he's, like, really tall and blonde.
Yeah.
And kind of quiet type, but also...
Isn't the next season of Shadow and Bone coming out soon? I thought I saw that somewhere.
Hopefully. They haven't set a release date for it.
Okay. I saw
anyway, back to Enchantment of Ravens.
Yeah, I know. Okay, I'm trying to think of anything else that I want to, like, talk about with Enchantment of Ravens, though.
I got Howl's Moving Castle vibes.
Yeah. No, me too. Oh.
Barely.
Yeah.
I think it was because she, like, a few times, Isabel described, like, how much taller he was than her. And I was like, oh, the height difference, like Sophie and Howl.
Yes.
But then, like, I thought about it more, and, like, this book is not very Howl's Moving Castle, but Sorcery of Thorns really is.
Yes. It is.
Because it's, like, the girl goes to and meets this evil wizard who's actually not evil, and his soul is in this demon who's his, like, friend companion.
That's amazing. Yes.
And then there's, like, the evil government wizard.
Oh my god, yes.
Tries to kill them.
That's the best. Dude, I love... this had, like, the basis, like, was a really good idea, but it felt like a third of the book was missing, at least.
Yeah.
Like, it
felt like she wrote it, like, 10 years ago.
Yeah. And she was like, I was 17 when I wrote this.
Grown exponentially.
Yeah. And... because it was just, like... we didn't earn any of it. Like, them, like, actually, like, falling for each other. Like, how interesting would it have been if, like, they went back to the Autumn Court and they found it in, you know, like, I don't know, like, maybe the what's the word? The the sickness, the corruption, the blight
Corruption?
has like made
Is that
it.
what it's called?
Yeah, I don't even know. I can't remember now. Has like made it to the autumn court, right? And so like they think that they're gonna have to deal with, like she's gonna be there and she's gonna stand trial or she's gonna like explain what happened with the painting, but instead they're like, holy shit, like we have to deal with this. I have no idea.
Yeah, that would be interesting. 'Cause I don't know. It just felt like since they never really went there, it felt we were always waiting for something to happen.
Yeah.
Instead of enjoying what's actually happening.
Right. And
But
then
I liked how at the beginning, I mean, like in Whimsy, everything is summer, right?
Yes.
But then she starts going through like the fairy lands. She's like, oh, maybe other seasons and change can be nice. I was like, I get your metaphors.
Yes. Yes.
It was nice.
Yeah, and I actually did like the end, like the end part, even that went by way too fast. And it wasn't like
when they were like back in her house.
Yeah, and it wasn't explained very well, but the whole like them like and his interactions, like Rook's interactions with her aunt and like the whole like protection thing. I mean, it's interesting that it ends back in Whimsy in her cottage or whatever, or her in their house, as opposed to being like, you know, in like the Feylands. But again,
I feel like this book also might have worked with like a tragic ending. Like it doesn't work out.
No, yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Maybe I'm just saying that because I don't care about the characters that much.
Yeah, but that's the thing. We don't.
Yeah,
it's like we don't spend enough time with them, and we don't get very much backstory on anyone. And I mean, what if the book opened up when she like paints the first portrait of like Gadfly, right? Let's rewrite the whole book, right? And then like it opens up as like, well, there's like a prologue or something, you know, that like tells us something that we don't know is important yet, but it'll be important later. Yeah. And then because that character is also interesting, but I definitely think
I feel like he's like the third main character.
Yeah, exactly. But like, I feel like I don't get to know him very well, but I think it's fascinating. Yeah. And also, I think the perspective thing would have helped for sure.
Yeah, perspective.
But now I don't know if I should ever, because Sorcery of Thorns is like flawless, and Vespertine is like amazing, and I'm
really
like
good, yeah.
And I'm like, how do I tell people like, just ignore that one, but because like I feel like you should read it just so you can be like, Margaret, I read all your books, but also.
Well, the thing is, I don't think it's bad. I just think, comparatively, it's nowhere near as good. Like, I feel like if I read it when I was, like, in middle school, and, like, wasn't that experienced with, like, reading fantasy books, I would have liked it a lot more.
I would agree with that as well.
At this point, I've been reading fantasy books for, like, 10 years. I've been reading YA fantasy for, like, 10 years.
And that's why it comes across like it's from somebody who's, like, younger, because I know, like, when I wrote stuff when I was younger, like, I had people who had relationships based on, like, nothing, right? Like, we didn't, like, you had no reason to be invested in them. And we didn't have a ton of reason to be invested in Isabel and Rook either. And then, but there were scenes where you could almost like I wanted to care more in certain scenes because it felt like we were almost there, but like I was already supplying so much of my own like stuff to try to make it, like when she gets turned into a rabbit and what's her face, and so she's like, that was actually an interesting scene. So he's like pissed that she was turned into a rabbit, and he's like holding her against him or whatever because like she's like freaking out because she's a rabbit. Which I know sounds ridiculous, but I was like, that scene could have been like much more
really touching.
Yeah, it could have, and it almost got there, but it couldn't because we weren't there yet with them, and we never really get there.
Yeah,
like ever.
I don't think she needs to be a fairy queen.
No,
I mean she doesn't even want to be a fairy. She just wants to paint, right?
Yeah, exactly, and she can't. But they got to figure out. I'm sorry. Like, I guess we can have a tragic end where she like dies, but otherwise we've got to figure out how she's not. Because this dude's like, I don't know how old is Rook. Like he's not gonna live forever. But they say they are, you know. But
yeah, but also she doesn't want to live forever.
I know.
So I feel like if she like. Maybe that could have been the tragic end. She accidentally gets turned into a fairy, and then she can't paint anymore. That would have been more sad.
Yeah, because I really wanted her to drink from the well. I'm just saying, like, 15-year-old me was like, drink from the well, damn it! Just go do it. Uh, yeah. But yeah, anyway. And then I think the whole, like, gadfly thing, and he was like, you did exactly, you made every decision the way you were supposed to. And she's like, but I thought you wanted, like, us to use the dagger, or, like, me to use the dagger against Rook. And then she realizes that he knew all along. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, any other final thoughts on Enchantment of Ravens?
Um, Not really. I'll probably never think about it again.
Yeah, me
The
either.
cover is pretty.
Exactly. I
And
agree.
Sorcery of Thorns and Vespertine are amazing, and I'll keep reading Margaret Rogerson forever.
But now
She's
it
really
sucks.
good
And
now.
now it sucks. We came in on the ground floor, so now we got to spend our whole freaking lives waiting for Margaret Rogerson books.
Yeah.
It's like, Margaret, where's the next book? Like, it's not like we can just read a bunch of them. We have to just, like, wait. And
No.
but I want to see if she decides maybe not to revisit that world, although I think it would be interesting if she did as, like, a soft reboot or something, because
Yeah.
I think the Fae thing, if she did that, she'd do it well now, and
I agree.
it would have, like, a lot of depth, because it's different kind of Fae stuff that I've ever read before. Like,
Yeah.
because have you come across the idea of, like, the craft or anything like that in Fae books?
I mean, I think, like, I've heard of, like, they bring humans to make them stuff, but not in the way that it's like fairies can't do it.
Right.
Or, yeah, so no, not really. Not in this way.
Because I think if she doesn't have to, like, pull this book out for, like, and unpublish it, but
Yeah.
I'm like, could we tell another story that's, because there's, like, Elise Kova has that whole series, The Married to Magic, which is, like, every
Yeah.
human woman
Yeah.
ends up with, and I was like, you could just, you don't have to copy that, but if you want to have that world re-explored, because also, when you have, like, in a fantasy world, you have, like, the human character or the outcast character who, like, is your introduction to that world and is, like, giving us all this information.
Yeah.
Like, Isabel wasn't very good at that. Like,
Yeah.
and so I was like, girl, you're supposed to be telling me about this stuff. And instead, we're just, like, in a forest. And
Because, like, Elizabeth could do that.
Yeah.
She knew stuff about, like, the grimoires.
right.
So she had enough knowledge, but, like, she had grown up so, like, prejudiced against the
Right.
wizards. Are they called wizards in that book? Sorcerers.
Sorceress,
I
yeah.
don't, obviously, it's called sorcery.
Yeah.
But so she had to learn all about that and, like, the modern world in this new city. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
I think she did a good job.
Okay, so that's it. I know we kind of how do I say this? Came around to some of the same topics a couple times, but that was the first time we'd ever done anything like that. So I hope that was interesting and enjoyable. If you're still interested in reading Enchantment of Ravens, it's not a bad book, like Emily said. It pales in comparison to Sorcery of Thorns, which is one of the most flawless fantasy books I've ever read. It's a standalone, at least at this point. She's writing a sequel novella. Well, she has written a sequel novella called Mysteries of Thorn Manor, which comes out in January, which Emily and I will also be reading together. And then Vespertine, which was the book I did for my first reading vlog, it's a great book. It's really good. It's not Sorcery of Thorns, but it's very good. And Margaret, if you're watching this, girl, I think you should revisit this world. I think, maybe if you want to pull this book out and just kind of, like, republish it and more fully develop it, there's so much here that, like, it's worth trying to fix, I think. But that's up to you. And it's up to you if you decide to read it. But guys, if you really, if you haven't read Margaret yet, and you decide to read this one first, just go in with a grain of salt, knowing that it's good, but it's just not going to be comparable in a lot of ways to her second 2 books. So that's it. Thank you guys for watching. And if you have any suggestions of, if you enjoyed this conversation, you have suggestions for things that you'd like to see Emily and I talk about, I'd love to hear it. All right. Bye.